our door being closed. So it's a good evening, Stu, and good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a lovely lunch break. Stu had some drinks with KMS before, so that's great. And yeah, welcome to the next session. Brought in a good friend of mine, Stu, from Melbourne, Australia. So he's looking forward to a weekend, right? It's a Friday evening at what is it? I don't know, 9 p.m. or so?
10 p.m.
Oh, hoi. Yeah. So 10 p.m. Thanks for staying awake, let's say. Maybe the timing wasn't the worst, since you could enjoy some drinks with KMS and then get back to us, right? But that's no need to discuss that straight away.
It was fantastic. I'd much rather you guys than the Americans. Then I'm up at 2 a.m. So you're great.
Yeah. I mean, as we discussed in Dublin, right? There's ways to relocate to Europe. So your choice. Yeah, but I think it's a beautiful where you are as well. So without further ado, Stu, thanks for being here. I'd hand over to you. Maybe you can quickly introduce yourself, and then let's get going. And for the group, Stu is waiting for crispy questions and interaction. So we got to practice and jump in whenever we want to do that, right? Good.
Great. So in the room and online, before I start, how many of you know what ChatGPT is? Can I see some hands? Oh, good. So we're aware of AI then. How many of you are using it in your work? Oh, fantastic. That's awesome.
Some of us are not allowed to use it, right? Yeah. So
yeah, no, we're the same. Yeah, it's we get big warnings come up when you go to ChatGPT at work. But, we just on Tuesday got our first AI tacit knowledge project approved. So I'm really excited to be getting started on that. Cool. So my name's Stuart French. I did a master's degree in knowledge management back in the early 2000s, and been doing this about 23 years. I'm the Australian delegate on the KM Global Network, and I've been mentored by Arthur Shelley. Some of you might know Arthur. He's been around a long time. And I'm currently, I have my own business, Delta Knowledge, where I am a knowledge strategy consultant, but I also have a day job at the moment, working in government for Energy Safe Victoria, so energy safety regulator for the government, which I'm really enjoying. That's I'm learning a lot and getting to enjoy a really good culture, which is you don't always get, right, working in knowledge management, but culture is such an important part of what we do. So I'm going to give you a bit of a background. Apologies to the academics in the room or the long-term KMers who know all this stuff. I just wanted to join a few dots in maybe a slightly different way and then apply that to your thinking about ChatGPT. So my goal today is to have you all walk away feeling a lot more confident about how you talk with your IT people about creating AI solutions that generate new experts, not replace them. Does that make sense? So you're going to be that voice. You're going to represent those deep experts in your business, because they'll probably never be invited into the IT rooms where these decisions are made, right? It's us knowledge managers who are going to fight the good fight. So I'll just quickly share my screen.
Have a hand in the mode setting.
So back in, hopefully you can see that screen okay?
Yeah, all good too. Is there any question from the online participants? I think it's a raised hand that was raised a bit longer. All good. Go ahead, Stu.
No worries. Yeah, Michael, you still got your hand up. So back in the 1946, a guy called Shannon published a paper on communications theory. Some of you, if you've been to uni, you would have learned about this, but the concept was that the mathematical communications theory involved a sender, a receiver, and a message. And so the idea was that the sender would have some knowledge and that they would send that knowledge across, and then the receiver would have that knowledge as well. And for a long time, education went the same way as well. Through the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, we moved to a thing called competency-based education, where the idea was the teacher had knowledge and the teacher would then, transfer that knowledge, and then the student would have the knowledge. Now, that raised a bit of a question. If it's the same teacher giving the same knowledge, and this theory is true, why do all the students have different marks? Shouldn't they all have the same marks, like depending on how well the teacher did their job? Of course, 1980s come along, knowledge management shows up, and people like Dave Snowden and many other good thinkers said, hold on. Of course, the reason we went to competency-based knowledge is because it's accessible. We can do a test and we can mark people and say, "Bop, you don't qualify." But that test isn't on whether they're competent or not. That test is on how well they can regurgitate the information they were given. And there's a difference between those two things. And so it's not information that's traveling between the teacher and the student. It's not knowledge, it's information, right? And then, of course, what's happening is the student is taking that information, mixing it with their own experience, their own skills, how well they like the teacher or not, how well they're feeling that day, and they generate their new knowledge in their own head. And you can hear this. You stand outside a classroom, you will hear the students come out, and their different groups of students will be talking about different things they learned in the same classroom. Well, the problem with calling information knowledge is it's like saying the painting of the Mona Lisa is the same as Mona Lisa. It's like saying that a photo of a landscape is the same thing as the actual landscape, where you can get in and walk around and turn around and feel the effects of the weather. Knowledge and information aren't the same thing. And the idea was that the more information you had, the more knowledge you would have. That was the argument, right, back in the 60s and 70s. If we just give people enough information, and remember, back then, information was quite scarce. And this is just one example of early knowledge management theories and people around knowledge management trying to explain the fact that if you just have enough data, you'll have enough information. If you have enough information, you'll have enough knowledge. If you have enough knowledge, then in the future, you'll be able to make wise decisions. But it kind of breaks down when you look at it in real life and study it. But of course, we don't need to study it because we had a grand experiment. So in the early 90s, of course, the internet showed up. And very soon after the internet, we got search engines. Some of you might remember Yahoo and Alta Vista, and then finally Google. And then, of course, things like Wikipedia come along. And that led to a panacea where everyone always knew the answer to everything and made fantastic decisions. And all of our governments did the perfect job of balancing budgets and never having wars, right? Only that's kind of not what happened. In fact, kind of the opposite happened. We had 25, 30 years later, the Green Wall project in Africa, running across 9 countries and stopping the advance of the Sahara Desert southward. Potentially one of the largest climate impact projects on the planet, by people who have access to hardly any information. Meanwhile, over the pond in America, we have people with access to all the information in their pocket. And a disturbing statistic that came out last year, 30% of 18 to 24-year-olds in America aren't sure if the world is round or flat. Now, I don't know about you, but that scares the heck out of me. And it definitely shows that information does not equal knowledge. More information doesn't mean more knowledge. So our job
Mm.
as knowledge managers isn't just to serve more information up to people and put better search engines in and have better records management, right? All of those things are important, but they're not enough. And so when we look at what is knowledge, how do we measure knowledge then if it's not how they regurgitate the information? Well, it's kind of like the apple tree, right? We judge it by how good the apple tastes. We don't judge a musician by how well they can read a music paper or recite music history. We listen to them play their instrument and we know straight away what knowledge they have, right? And likewise, in industry, an individual is capable of doing things regardless of the situation, right? That's knowledge, not just regurgitating answers to questions in a test. They can be put in a whole new situation and they know what to do, or at least they know how to explore it to find out what to do. And likewise, the industry itself, the factory, they're measured by their capability to still create products and goods and services, regardless of who is coming and going on the HR role, right? The knowledge of the industry is, are we capable of that industrial advantage in the market? So why is this important? Well, it's important because right now, all of us are seeing the capability of AI systems grow like crazy. Some of the newer models now are pushing out PhD level maths. It really is incredible how quickly this technology is coming online. And there's no promise that it'll keep growing like it is at the moment. There's no promise that copyright law won't kick in and their training data sets will become extremely lean. But for now, it's growing like crazy. And not just in GPT models, but in new types of models, new technologies, and new supporting technologies like RAG, like knowledge graphs, and other supporting tools to reduce hallucinations and to bring local knowledge into play. I heard a great saying this morning, actually at the KM event here. One of the ladies who was speaking, she said, if someone doesn't know what knowledge management is, just tell them we're the R in RAG. And I thought about that for a minute and thought that is actually pretty good. So, of course, whether you look at the media or whether you look at government guidance right now, everyone is saying that what we want is human in the loop. It's human plus AI that is the answer in the future, not just AI replacing everyone. So this is what we're looking for. We're looking for that great human expertise with this AI expertise on top that's kind of turbocharging our people, right? And that's cool. But there's a fly in the ointment. There's more and more research coming out suggesting that when people use AI, something happens in their brain. I'm just showing 3 papers here, but I've got tons of them on record. I've been saving as they come out. And this effect is particularly strong in teenage students, which should be even more alarming. And so what's basically going on here is there's a growing base of evidence that's suggesting that AI in its current Q&A form, even when it shows the reasoning for why it's giving the answers it is, may be detrimental to building expertise. In fact, if you have a chat to people like Bruce Boys or Stephanie Barnes, they'll point out that there is now strong evidence that it's not just stopping us building expertise, it's actually undermining the expertise of the people that we already have. And this is particularly a worry because if human capability starts to decline, we've still got this total capability rise hiding the problem. Can you see that? So we've got cognitive offloading and degradation of critical thinking and deep expertise happening underneath here. But because AI is increasing so fast and helping so much, we're not seeing this drop off in terms of total capability. In fact, productivity is going up right now.
And in the end, Stu, one could, sorry,
yeah.
and in the end, one wouldn't even realize, right? Because I mean, if I look at that right now, and I would show it to our CEO, it's like, okay, the growth rate is not as much as we expected, right? But since our cognitive load is deteriorating, we don't even realize we're not growing as fast as we want to, right? My point?
Exactly right. That's spot on. So as the pre-AI experts like you and I retire, it may then be too late. The damage is done. Now, I'm not saying this is happening. I'm just saying it's one of the things in the back of my brain. And it's certainly, the evidence is growing that this could definitely be impacting the next generation of people coming through. Now, for the last 5.5 years, I've worked in emergency services.
I have one question.
Agency.
Stu, one question.
Oh, yeah, far away.
Aren't we running in the next problem? If you go back one slide, right at the moment, the AI is trained on our expertise, but the AI is replaced by, it's learning from the internet. And if more and more is generated by AI, soon the AI will learn from the AI and not from our expertise. And isn't this shit in, shit out, let's say it this way, in the future, and we get less good information?
So that idea terrifies me. It's already happening. And I worked for many years in the medical waste industry. And one of the biggest threats in medical waste is a thing called a prion. Does anyone know what a prion is?
Nope.
Right. So a prion is a protein that when it touches brain tissue, it turns it to mush. They had an outbreak in England. It was called mad cow disease. It's called Khrushchev-Jacobs disease, I believe.
Yeah, BSE. Yeah, BSE in German. Yeah.
Very, very nasty. And the way that came into being was cost cutbacks in the pig industry, in the pork industry, meant that they started feeding pork waste back to the pigs. So they started this loop where the pigs were eating the previous pigs. And then we were eating the pigs.
Delicious.
And that's where those prions had a chance to mutate, right? And that, to me, is exactly what we're doing in AI right now. We're putting out all this AI-generated content, exactly as you said. And so that as well could be creating this sort of what would you call it? Like a spinning wheel effect.
A wishing
where you
circle.
start
A wishing
getting
circle in the
gyroscopic
end, right?
forces, you know.
Yeah.
And it's possible that I reckon in the next 2 years, we may start seeing some of the detrimental effects of that. But this one affects me more because this is happening right now. So in the emergency services, we deal a lot with what's called low frequency, high impact scenarios. Let me tell you a quick story. We had a fire crew in South Australia that turned out to a house. The lady had just made a phone call to the emergency services and said that her 3 sons were unconscious and that she felt terrible. So they got there as quick as they could. The front door of the house was open, and down the hall, they could see her laying face down on the floor with the phone in her hand. So, any ideas? What do you think the problem was?
Yes. Yes.
Gas? Yep. That's exactly what the fireys thought. So they pulled out their carbon monoxide, and they've got these little gas detectors. And they put it around, didn't find any gases. No noxious gases. So 2 firefighters quickly ran in, grabbed the lady, and promptly fell unconscious. So at this point, 4 other firefighters are running to the truck to get breathing apparatus on. They get into the house, they drag the 2 firefighters out, they drag the lady out, and then they go in and they find the 3 sons and they pull them out. So here's what actually happened. Mum was sick to death of her sons not cleaning their tropical fish tank. So after multiple requests and nothing happening, she emptied some of the water, she got a scrubbing brush, and she scrubbed the front, she scrubbed the sides, she scrubbed the back, got all that green stuff off, and then she scrubbed the live coral on the bottom of the fish tank, which was also covered in green algae. That coral responded by releasing a defensive aerosol toxin into the air, knocking everybody out. I'd like to put to you that that's possibly the first time that's ever happened.
Yes, so.
So asking ChatGPT for what should we do wouldn't really help you, because there's just not enough data of that sort of incident to give you an idea of what the correct action is. Of course, the correct action they took in the lessons learned, which is what I was involved in, was that it doesn't matter whether the detector goes off or not, you still go in with BA. And that's good advice. But the problem is the next one won't be like that. It'll be different again. And that's the problem with AI. So in this area, AI has very little data, and yet current AI models are extremely confident as they give you their answer based on that tiny data, right? And so I'm really concerned that these sorts of problems are the ones that have the big costs associated with them. So, for example, NASA losing the ability to launch a Saturn V rocket, right? 10 years to develop an entire new form of engineering, systems engineering, to be able to create and launch that to the moon. And yet 15 years later, they couldn't replicate it. They'd lost the ability. I'm talking about the human race losing the ability to create concrete for 1,600 years before we rediscovered it. And I'm talking about the French not having the knowledge to rebuild Notre Dame, except that they did. And thank God for these hundreds of wonderful people who trained for generations, their fathers, their grandfathers, in the forests to keep these trade skills alive. And if you're a KMer that works on the expertise end of knowledge management, then we had tears in our eyes when we saw these amazing people get to use these skills that have been passed down from generation to generation to rebuild that cathedral with the original techniques. It was very, very exciting and one of the best KM stories I've ever read. So the question is, how do we stop the use of AI degrading critical thinking and deep expertise? Are there any thoughts out there?
No thoughts so far? There is
Anyone
thoughts.
online?
There is thoughts.
One of the biggest problems is to get this deep expertise. You have to do a task that nobody wants to do. I mean, it's like you have to do a really stupid task on and on and on until you really know it. And that's the problem, because nobody wants to do it, because it's a stupid task that you have to do to gain this knowledge. For example, you have to do, I don't know, multiplications for hundreds of times until you actually know it and until you can check if the AI is doing it correctly or not. Otherwise, you just don't know. And I think that's a big challenge in our organization as well. How we get the new students or the new practitioners in 10 years to do these tasks and not use AI, but to gain this expertise. I don't know. I don't know if you have an answer to this question. Would be great.
I love it. I think you've hit the nail on the head. In fact, I've got a little story about that exact thing. So when I was in school back in the 80s, we had calculators, right? But we were not allowed to use those calculators. We had to work out the maths, and then we could use the calculator to check our answer, right? I hated that. I was the worst student. I was constantly complaining because I was like, I'm going to have a calculator when I leave school. Like, when I go to work, I'm going to have a calculator on my desk. Why can't we use it now? It's so stupid. Fast forward 25 years, and my son is going to school, and they do have calculators, really fancy graphing calculators. But he had no idea how to actually do the math. He had to follow the instructions and program the calculator by reading the instructions one at a time out of the book to do simple arithmetic. And I remember going and digging around in a box and pulling out my old 1982 scientific calculator. And I said, look, here's the problem. And I went, tap, 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 tap. That's the answer, right? And it just blew his mind that, number one, I could do it on my old calculator, and number two, I knew what to type in what order to make it work. And I realized then that my blustering about we should be able to use calculators was actually wrong. The teachers were right. We can use the calculators when we go to work, but we need to learn it manually first, or we won't know how to do it. In fact, one of the definitions of expertise is not that you can answer a question, it's that you know which question to ask. Angie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was about to say.
No, I had a thought. But I'm totally with you with what you just said a moment ago. And my thought was that I mean, I don't have the answer, but this problem that you lay out for sort of future generations, we already have it now, right? So how do we really check in all the pages and pages of stuff that we get back what is actually relevant? So it seems to me, I don't know if you know this, the reflective practitioner approach to really reflect also as well about what is it really that I've learned, what was really surprising, and how can I improve my practice? It feels to me that this is something that we need to focus much more on than we did before, because not only future generations need this, but also us in the next coming years of our professional life.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So let me ask you another question then. So what we really want is this, right? We want humans increasing in skill and AI increasing in skill. Might it be possible to use AI to not just answer the questions, but build the expertise in the users who are asking the questions? Could the problem be part of the answer? So what we're going to do now is we're just going to quickly do a bit of an exercise. But before we do, I'm just going to talk a bit about this, because I have to apologize. Before I actually said that education is going downhill, that's unfair, because there are thousands of amazing, incredible teachers who do way more than just read stuff to their students, right? They create amazing learning experiences. They They get passionately involved. They get the students thinking by themselves rather than just remembering. And of course, we've got the trades, and the trades have kept their learning style going for 1,200 years. All right. So let's talk a bit about that, because I think we can learn a bit from the trades and the way a master teaches. So firstly, there's this 3-stage thing that a master does. Now, I don't know how apprenticeships work in Germany, so I'm going to use the Australian example. But what we do is we have our apprentices go to school for 1 day a week, or maybe 1 week in every 4, and they will learn from teachers the theory. And then they come back to work, and the master sits with them, or a journeyman sits with them and teaches them the practice, how to apply that theory, right? And the way they do that is by coaching, showing an example, then getting the apprentice to copy, and then correcting them.
Yeah.
And sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. It works the same way over here. Just to
Same way over there?
context.
Great.
Yeah.
So what you may not be aware of unless you've done an apprenticeship is just how dastardly evil these masters are, right? They use Socratic discussion. They use model reasoning with the apprentices, and they actually set them up for failure, right? They engineer failure. So the apprentice has to fall over and learn through that experience. And Dave Snowden says we learn 88 times more from failure than we do from success. And that's certainly borne out in the apprenticeship model. So what the master's doing is he or her is not trying to teach the apprentice. What they're trying to do is to expose the gaps in their reasoning, to work out what they don't know, or what they do know which is wrong in a way which is going to produce bad results. And so the apprentice gets tested and challenged and will be asked to stop halfway through a job and explain why he's doing something. So the poor kid has remembered that he has to do it ABC, but he has no idea why it's ABC and not ACB. And so these are some of the techniques that apprentices use. I know when I was an apprentice, I was sent into, I worked at a large gas and oil refinery, and I was sent into the refinery to find a left-handed screwdriver. Now, being a young apprentice, I thought, okay, left-handed, obviously I'm right-handed, all my screwdrivers must be right-handed. So they said, you've got to go to the workshop. So I went to the workshop, and I noticed the guy smile when I asked, but I didn't think anything of it. And he goes, Bill's got it. You've just missed him. He's down the back of the plant. He's down by the settling ponds. You'll have to go down there and get it from him. But before you do, have you done the eyewash training? Because you can't go into the plant without doing the eyewash. So he runs me through the eyewash training. And then I say, right, so I get my helmet on and my safety gear on, and I head off. And as I'm walking out the door, he says, wait. You can't just walk down there. You've got to go to the control room, introduce yourself to the controllers, let them know you're there and why you're going down the back of the plant and how long you're going to be. Okay? So I go into the control room. Once again, smiles on faces as I tell them why I'm there. And they say, wait a minute, you're one of the radio apprentices, aren't you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, check this out. We've got this old Foxborough computer that was just decommissioned 2 weeks ago. We're pulling it all apart. Come and have a look. So I spent half an hour with them looking at this old Foxborough, with the ferrite donuts on the memory boards and everything. It was amazing. So then they let me go, and I went down there, and of course I find this guy, and he was the guy that told me there was no such thing as a left-handed screwdriver, and then asked me everything I'd learnt on that journey, right? So they'd engineered that experience. So I love this saying. Expertise to those that hold it simply feels like common sense. So they don't think to share it. a master working with apprentice is less of a teacher and more like someone that's molding clay, right? The trick isn't to sort of cut out a shape. The trick is to keep the clay supple and move it and add a bit and remove a bit and stretch it out into the right shape, but not just the right shape, with the right structure so it'll survive the kiln process. And that's what they're doing. They're not just teaching an apprentice someone who's just going to walk away. They need to create a person who can survive under the stress of a full job. And so let me give you a little activity here. So a junior analyst presents a flawless spreadsheet on energy demand forecasts. And when they're asked how the assumptions were derived, they say, oh, they're from last year's model. It worked well then. Now, the master recognises that the analyst hasn't accounted for the new carbon pricing policy amount announced last month. Yeah. So if you were the master, obviously you could just correct them. No, there's new legislation. You're going to have to modify your numbers. Go fix it. But if you did that, they wouldn't learn anything. So I want you to have a chat amongst yourselves. And I don't know whether you can turn the volume down there so the onliners can have a chat amongst ourselves.
Yeah,
and the room can have a chat.
we can try that. Yeah.
Can try that.
Yeah.
Have a talk about what questions could you have asked the junior analysts that would get them to think about what knowledge they were missing, but not just that. You teach them that in the future they need to go looking for what they're missing all the time. Does that make sense? You're not just fixing this immediate problem. You're trying to teach the junior analyst to be a better analyst. So have a talk amongst yourself for 5 minutes about what questions you have asked the junior analyst.
All right.
Now, hopefully all of us online can hear each other. So if you want to unmute yourselves, jump in and have a shot.
Also ich kann dich hören.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
I put on my camera, but it doesn't work.
So I've got Angie, Michael, Gerda. I think that's all of us. Any ideas on what you'd say?
Not such an easy question.
Yeah, but there's many options, right? I mean, you could start with what might be different from last year to this year.
Asked to use more, to make a better research on what's happening. Yes.
Yep.
To ask, yeah, how to do such a work and to get this answer and what should be considered as well.
Yeah, but I think then the expertise is to focus on stuff that actually matters, because of course any kind of stuff could be different from last year. You know, I don't know, there's a new ice cream on the market and that's like totally not relevant. But it depends how much time this young person has to figure it out, right? I mean, they might start by coming up with a trillion things that could be relevant, but then the outcome is that it's just the one, it's the legislation that's the most important to focus on.
Do you think the junior analyst was aware of his assumptions? That he even had them?
No, probably not. They probably just thought that's the way to do it. They were probably really proud that they figured out, okay, let's use the same assumptions.
Yep. I think that's pretty common. And that's why I shared that quote, you know, the expertise that to those that hold it simply feels like common sense. That goes for the master and the apprentice, right? And a lot of people are shooting from the hip. Michael, have you got your hand up?
No, I hadn't, but yeah, I think the question is to ask about the assumption and what's the way to, or teach the way to think. So ask about how you create your model and what influences you have, and then maybe he comes out of differences they didn't have in this year.
Yeah. Yep.
But I find it's really interesting because you could also argue then the model, last year's model was actually not correct because they forgot to include carbon pricing. And I mean, it's probably there should be a cycle, right? Of course, there's always new stuff that's not covered in previous knowledge, like the example you made with this the toxins from the coral. But if it's something that maybe in fact the master forgot to include in the model, that is also possible.
Agreed. So obviously you want to avoid the junior analyst feeling attacked or shutting down. How do you think you could do that? What should you avoid?
I think by encouraging and showing interest on the way to the solution, it's encouraging the student to get confident, even if the results are wrong. But if you only focus on the result and saying, well, you did it wrong, the results are wrong, then you get a student that doesn't want to try again. So
yeah, that's exactly what you're trying to avoid, right?
Yeah.
One of the Andy, I don't know whether it was you or somebody in the room said about people just don't want to do the work now. And I think if we even just getting them to do the work could be seen as an off-putting thing, you know. I think that's a really great insight that she had, because the next generation that's coming through, it's very different levels of hope, very different levels of the understanding of work and responsibility. And I'm not sure why in Australia that is so different between generations. But I've got a son who is 28. I've got a daughter who is 21. And just between those two generations, there is radical difference in the culture. Just 7 years apart. It's amazing how quickly it's changed. All right, well done.
Okay. So to rephrase, we would basically appreciate everything that the junior analyst did right, and then somehow ask, okay, actually, you did forget something. Have another thing, or what?
Yep. All right. Is everyone in the room still there? Can you hear us, or are we still muted? Wave if you can hear us.
Yeah.
I think we're still muted.
Chat. Okay.
I wonder if I can make the computer ding or something.
I just wrote in the chat.
So one of the things that have done with my apprentices, or the people that I've trained over the years. Here we go. Are they coming? One of the things I've done is I've had a conversation with them, getting them to reason through what their assumptions were as they did the work. Here we go. Are we all back?
There we are. Yeah.
Can you hear us?
Yay.
Yay. Very good. I'm not sure which mic is working, but I hope it's fine.
No, that's okay. We can hear you great.
Good. Good.
Is that, by the way, is that a dice with a mic in it?
Yeah, it's a dice with a mic in it.
That is very cool. All right, so let's cover off in the room. What ideas did you come up with?
Which assumptions are used to fill in this spreadsheet, and are they still valid?
Yep. What do you do when he feels attacked by that?
I don't know. I'm not the diplomatic guy.
Yeah. I'm slightly neurodiverse, so I'm not too able to handle that either. What about somebody else?
Actually, I would just talk to the person. I mean, if I'm the master and he's the junior and he feels attacked by this, I would just say, okay, then let's check it together and we'll see.
So I'm about to... Sorry, go on.
And we'll see. I will just, maybe take this confrontation because I think it's valid to do that. And I think it's necessary for junior to see that they don't know everything. There's still some ways for them to learn. And it's even for the master as well. I mean, everybody has to learn.
Yeah. And you are right, of course, that failure is important. And it's good to experience a bit of that pain to help you move forward. In Australia, we're a very egalitarian society. A couple of years ago, we had the Prime Minister down here in Melbourne going for a morning jog before his morning meetings. And he was jogging down the Yarra River, and on the Queen Street Bridge, there was a young electrician working on some lighting on the side of the bridge. And he saw the Prime Minister and he said, "G'day, John," and walked over and gave him a hug with a screwdriver in his hand. Now, can you imagine if you did that to Donald Trump? How many bullet holes you would have in you? But in Australia, that's completely normal. That is just because everyone's the same. He's just the Prime Minister. He's just another bloke, right? And so students don't feel lesser than their teachers. And so they can take a direct confrontation like that fairly personally.
Very good. Cool. Stu, I gotta be a little bit cautious of time. Sorry for that. I think it's a great discussion, but maybe we can have a last short question from the group, if any.
Yep. We've got 6 minutes left, right? Or not?
Yeah. We need to give them a little bit of time to switch rooms, right? So maybe we can do a quick wrap up, Stu. Yeah.
Okay. So can I quickly go to my last slide then?
Go ahead.
So what I was going to ask you to do next was to write a pre-prompt for an AI chatbot to act as that mentor. Yeah. So to get the mentor to work. So one of the things I'm doing is I am challenging the mindset of the prompter. So I'm trying to, I get my AI chatbot, which I call Mentor AI. I get it to infer from the conversation what the assumptions of the prompter are. Step number 1. If it doesn't fully understand or it doesn't have high confidence about the underlying assumptions, then it asks questions to understand the mindset and assumptions that the person's got. Once it gets that and has enough confidence, it then doesn't tell the person what they missed. It asks a question that forces the prompter to realize the gap in their own thinking. So by answering that question, they have the aha moment.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh, what an idiot. I should have done a check on current legislation to see if anything was missing. But it's them that come to the realization. It's not the chatbot that tells them they were wrong and how they were wrong. Yeah. So as you're working with your IT people and you're building these chat interfaces for the different tools you're building, that's what I was hoping I could give you today, that you have a think about the interaction between the chatbot as the master and the human as the person who's trying to lead, but maybe doesn't have all the facts. And that interaction, I think, will not just lead to better outcomes of human plus AI, but will actually lead to increases in human knowledge, because they've been asked to think and think anew and been guided by something that's intentionally thinking about what they're missing, not just sycophantically filling in the gaps and telling them how wonderful they are.
Yeah.
So we've run out of time. I hope that has helped you. I don't know whether it's a new idea or something you've already been thinking about, but it's been consuming a lot of my time just trying to make this work.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic.
thank you so much for having me speak to you this KM week.
Yes, thanks, Stu. Yeah, and if anyone wants to dive deeper, I'm pretty sure they can connect to you. And yeah, I can only recommend to have a chat with Stu. He's a bright mind. You got to take that. All right, Stu, you'll just stay here for the next session, right? But everyone, thanks for being here. And yeah, and see you around.
Lovely to meet you all.